Today we are going to be speaking about how do I sing on tune. Before we go into today's lesson, I just want to take a little bit of a chance to acknowledge that this can be a very sensitive and emotional issue for a lot of people. And I think that's for a number of reasons. One being that I have had so many students who have come to me who could not sing on tune, and they had people tell them, you have no chance, you will never be able to sing, you can never become better. And oftentimes that attitude will stem from if somebody cannot sing on tune. And that's part of the reason why I want to address this before we go into it, because I believe that if you come in with the right attitude and work ethic, that it is totally possible to learn how to sing on tune. And the reason why I know that is because I've had so many students that have learned to be able to sing on tune. Now, of course, there are rare conditions where somebody might have an issue with the way their musculature works, but those are like rare cases where somebody cannot learn how to sing on tune. I would say for 99% of the population, it is totally possible if you have these two things in place, which is number one, your attitude. Your attitude means so much, like it is so foundational. I've had students who have come into their lesson, and it probably stems from that place of insecurity. You know, when you feel that you don't feel comfortable admitting that you might not know everything, and you don't have an attitude of wanting to learn and wanting to listen. And if you have an attitude where you're just defensive and you want to shut everything down, then you aren't going to grow. But if you come in with that attitude, because I've had some students who have come in with crazy voices, but they have come in with that attitude of, I want to learn, I want to be as best as I can be. Where can I grow? How can I improve? If I have a student who has that, the possibilities are limitless what they can do, because they want to try, they want to learn, and that makes the biggest difference. And the other is work ethic. I've had students who they will listen in the class and be like, yeah, I get it. But if you don't practice, how in the world do you think that you're going to improve? You can listen to somebody talking about something for hours and hours on end, but if you never experience it, you're never going to grow. I'm sorry, you're never going to grow. But if you want to learn, if you want to break the mold, if you want to prove everybody wrong who's ever told you that you cannot sing, and you come in with a good attitude and you come in with work ethic, you are going to be able to sing on tune. Nothing is impossible. So to understand how to sing on tune, we first need to talk about a couple different terms, just so that we understand the terminology of how it works. So if the note is here and you are singing too high, you're going to be sharp. If you're singing too low, you're going to be what we call flat. Step one in learning how to sing on tune comes down to ear training. Now, everybody comes to a place of learning how to sing on tune at a different spot. So for some people, they can tell if they're sharp, if they're flat, but they just cannot control it, which is a different issue. But what we're gonna start off is we're gonna start at the very basic, because some people can't even really tell. They're like, am I off tune? Am I not off tune? So we're gonna start there, because that is the very first thing that you start with. So with ear training, and I've had students that I've worked with who, when they heard music, it was like one big chunk and block of sound. And they couldn't distinguish between a guitar, a piano, a violin. Is the note going higher? Is the note going lower? They just, you can't determine. And if that is where you are, you definitely need to start with ear training first. And even if you know, you can kind of hear it sometimes. It's also really good to work on ear training. So how do you work on ear training, you might ask? The way that you work on ear training is really listening to music. So I would suggest take some of your favorite songs right now, whatever they are, whatever is popular on the radio. Take those songs, and I want you to take a sheet of paper and write down exactly what is happening. So spend some time thinking about what's happening in the piano, what's happening with the guitar. Is there a cool kind of electronic sound going on? What's happening with the drums? What's happening with the bass guitar? What is happening? Is there a violin? Are there harmonies? Other people singing different parts? I want you to go through and I want you to list down everything that's happening with that song. And it might be a weird exercise, but it's really important because you're gonna have a hard time singing on tune if you don't understand everything that is coming around that note to support it. So when you're singing that melody, the piano's supporting you, the guitar's supporting you, the drums, all those things are the background to what you're singing. So if you don't understand what you're standing on, the ground that you're standing on, how can you expect to sing on tune? And another thing that's important to note is sometimes when you're singing, some of the notes that are being played by the other instruments will actually, interesting enough, will actually be playing a note here or there that you might be singing. So if you become familiar with the accompaniment of the song, it'll be easier for you to sing on tune because for instance, there might be a part that you're having a really hard time singing on tune, but if you know it and know that the electric guitar is playing a couple of your notes, maybe not all of your notes, but a couple of your notes here or there, it'll help you so that at least you have a few places that you can come back to, a few notes where you're like, okay, I know this note. And your melody might veer off in a couple places, but if you go, that part I know what that note is, it'll help you to always have an anchor to come back to. The second part of ear training is really learning how to understand if you are singing on tune or not. So you need to know what's happening with the music, so you know what to come back to, and you need to understand if you are singing on tune or not. So I really strongly do suggest that you work with somebody who is a voice teacher or a friend who's really musical. Record yourself. It might feel incredibly awkward and embarrassing, I will admit. It can feel incredibly awkward and vulnerable and embarrassing. But if this is a real goal of yours, you're gonna be willing to feel awkward and embarrassed in order to conquer the skill. Singing requires you to be ferocious, like a lion, determined, like, I will get this. So if you sit down with a good friend of yours or a professional who can sit down and help you to identify where you're singing sharp, where you're singing flat, eventually over time, you'll start to be able to recognize yourself when you're singing sharp and when you're singing flat. Once you have the understanding of proper ear training, so you've developed a really strong base of understanding how the music sounds, and if you are singing high, too high, which is sharp, or too low, which is flat, then you need to start working on the next point, which is learning how to correct yourself when you're off tune. So if you are singing sharp, what you want to do is focus more of your weight on your heels. So sink back on your heels of your feet. And the reason why that works, and this was a tip that was taught to me by a vocal choir director, is if you are singing sharp and you kind of collapse the space for your lungs to breathe, you will automatically be able to correct it so you don't have too much air passing through those vocal folds. If you're singing flat, what you want to do is focus more of your weight on your balls of your feet. And what that will do is it will open up your lungs so that you can breathe much better and be able to get that deeper lung capacity that you need in order to just push that note above where it needs to be. Now, on the point of breathing, I do also have a video that talks about breathing in much more detail in order to gain more control over your breathing capacity and breathing in general. So if that is something you are interested in, I'm going to have that down in the description box. So take a listen to that, and that will just kind of expand your knowledge a little bit deeper in learning how to fix that tuning issue for you. It is also, as a little bonus tip, really important to remember that your posture really does affect your tuning a lot. So one of the things you want to watch for is, if you are performing, make sure that you practice in the shoes you're going to be wearing for the week coming up to when your performance is going to be. And the reason for that is, if you're always used to singing barefoot, and all of a sudden for your performance you decide to put on a pair of stilettos, you're going to be putting all of your weight onto the balls of your feet, and that is going to affect your posture, so that inevitably, I can tell you right now, your performance will be sharp if you make that adjustment. But if you have the whole week where your body kind of gets used to adjusting to that issue of you wearing different footwear, then you will have time for your muscles to get used to how that change needs to happen in your singing, so you don't have that tuning issue when you go to performance. I hope that today was super helpful in you learning how to be able to sing on tune. Remember, you can never fix a problem like this without practice. So make sure you're practicing. Make sure you're working on developing that ear, that you're learning how the music goes, that you're learning how the notes move up and down, that you're listening to yourself to learn whether or not you're singing on sharp or if you're flat, and learning to adjust your body posture to correct those issues. And I know that in no time you will be singing on tune. So if you loved this video, please make sure to like, comment if there's anything else that you would love to learn, because I'd love to help you and make a video. But I can only do that if you tell me what you would like to learn. And also make sure you subscribe so you can get all the videos coming up. Ring the bell for the notifications. And I will see you coming up for more piano and vocal lessons for your musical adventure. See you. Andrew! Ugh. So much noise.